Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV, where we will continue going through the cave of Eblan and meet the newest party member.
I maintain that as long as it's not Edward, then I am fine with anybody joining the party to help us.
Hey, didn't we see the guy in the red earlier with that doctor and Barnabas a while ago?
Yes, it is Joe, and we're going to get right into it by introducing Rubicante officially as the last of the four fiends, and he is in a scripted encounter against Edge, who is very unprepared to fight at this point.
Rubicante certainly looks more intimidating than some of the other fiends we've seen before, but unlike them, it looks like there's some actual build-up by seeing how strong he is and the connection with another antagonist.
Wow, that Edge guy got hit with over 3 times his maximum health. He really did have no chance to win that fight.
That is correct, which although does show how powerful Rubicante is, it also is a rather strange introduction to Edge as the first time you see him. It's when he's absolutely obliterated by someone else, which funny enough is a good representation of him in battle.
Oh no, Rydia, don't cry. Come on over to Joe. I'll make you feel better, but not in a weird way unless you know that's what you want to do.
Joe, we are not having you infatuated with Rydia again. It was bad enough when it started, and I don't anticipate it getting any better with her being here for probably the rest of the game. You need to control yourself and not take every opportunity to make it into something that isn't meant to be. Especially since she's a character in a video game that isn't real, but you don't seem to acknowledge that detail often, if ever.
I definitely agree with you, Ben, but aren't we back in that Tower of Babel? I thought we went through that last time.
I don't recognize this part from last time, so I'd assume it's a different part of the tower that we didn't get to.
There's a lot to go over, so we'll go one at a time. Ben, I also agree that Joe needs to stop simping for every woman he comes across in this game, but I'm not sure if he's realistically going to learn his lesson soon, if ever. George, you are correct in that we are back in the Tower of Babel, and Donald, you are correct that it's a different part that we didn't get to the first time. It is kind of weird they're using assets again, but at least the design is different, so it's not completely reused. Also, I have no idea what Edge actually did to have everyone go through the wall, as he never does anything like that again.
I'll try to get myself focused on the gameplay, but with Rydia and Rosa in the party, it'll be a difficult task, that's for sure.
It shouldn't be this hard to not do something as simple as that, but that's what happens when we bring along Joe each time we play something together.
Hey guys, while this game goes on and not much is happening, I was thinking we could go over some responses to that question we asked in the previous part a while back.
That is a good idea, George. We try to have these parts recorded a while in advance, so it's possible more will be added in that comments section after we're done looking through them. The most common answer was Final Fantasy VII and X, but there were some other ones such as Tactics and The Legend of Dragoon, which I don't think is part of the series. Some of the others were 8, 9, 5, 13, and 13-2.
Hold up there, did you just say 13-2? Like a sequel or something?
Yes, I can explain that. Although the games generally are unrelated in the actual plot, there are some games that continue the story directly. Examples would be this game in Final Fantasy IV, The After Years, but we won't be playing that one. There's also Final Fantasy X and X-2. Later on, there was Final Fantasy XIII, XIII-2, and Lightning Returns, which ended up being a trilogy.
I thought this series couldn't get any more confusing, but now there's direct sequels as well. I'm glad we probably won't be playing those later ones if they're going to have us need to know what happens for each one. Or at least I'm guessing we're not playing those ones.
Not for a long time, if ever, but we'll get to that once we actually decide to play something else in the series.
Hey, Barack, is something important going to happen? I'm not sure if anything is going on now.
That's a good question, Joe. Something important is coming up right now. You may have heard that the king and queen of Eblan weren't at the castle, but they also weren't at the cave. It turns out they actually are here in the tower, although due to Dr. Lugay's influence, they're not who they were before.
Oh wow, the doctor actually influenced something after he died. Usually these boss fights just end and the characters have no real impact on the world before or afterwards.
I think it was actually before he died, but otherwise, yeah, that is right. These things really don't look like how they should, and it's yet another boss battle.
Guys, I know this is supposed to be a deep emotional moment, but since it's a boss battle, I have to get my roasts going.
Oh no, this can't go well.
I'll start with the queen. If I had a nickel for every limb you have, I would have no nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird you don't have any. You named your child Edge, so you kind of deserve your fate when you think about it. Your fire spells are somehow even less effective than Edge's ninja skills he tried and failed to do earlier. Really, I should be roasting him for trying to kill one of the four fiends alone like his 3-digit health bar could really handle it. Now with King Obvious over here saying he's not human as if their appearances didn't make that clear enough. Personally, if I were you, I would jump off this platform not for what you look like, but for thinking I can't tell you changed.
I have to be honest, Ben, these roasts aren't all that good this time.
Well, I'm sorry, George, I didn't realize they existed until 1 minute ago, so it's not like I had that much material to work off of. Besides, it doesn't look like they're going to be here a lot longer, so it doesn't matter at this point.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can't be too harsh on you given the circumstances.
Wow, that sure looks like a difficult fight. I can't imagine how you managed to beat them both at the same time. You must be really good at this game.
Joe, that was a scripted encounter and Barack didn't need to fight them at all. They barely did any damage anyway, so no, that was not a difficult fight in any conceivable way.
You're right on that, Donald. No, I didn't need to attack them, nor would it have done anything even if I did. We'll talk about that later, but for now, Rubicante is back, and he doesn't seem to entirely agree with what happened to them, but is still going to fight the group anyway. It is interesting in that he actually heals your party before you fight him. Not that you really need it after the previous fight, but it does add to his character as seeming more honorable.
I don't have any more roasts in me. You can just fight him and explain what you're doing.
Sounds good. Honestly, there isn't a lot to this fight, just like many of the others in the game. The part he mentioned about the cloak basically means he is weak to ice attacks, though only when he doesn't have his cloak up. When it is up, then he gets healed instead, which for obvious reasons we do not want. Edge gains some of his ninja skills suddenly, but Rydia's magic spells are much better since Edge is just at a lower level and isn't leveled up that much by now. His skills won't get used barely at all in the playthrough.
It looks like Cecil's ice sword did over 5,000 damage to him while Edge did nearly 400. I would think Cecil and probably Rydia would be best to keep attacking, and I can see why Edge isn't all that useful. He's almost like having another Edward, just not a bard this time.
Kane got himself healed with his jump attack and did an all right amount of damage, but it seems Cecil is still the best one for the fight. It's probably because he's always been in the party, so there's never a point where he is more underleveled compared to someone else.
That's a really good point, George. I think you're right on that. Barack, are there other things about this fight that are noteworthy or not really?
There is an attack called Inferno that does a lot of damage and at this point would pretty much instantly knock out Edge or Rydia if it hits them. I know the fight started a little while ago, but since it's more of the same, I think it's best to just skip ahead a while. There's nothing he does differently to where it's interesting to go for another 2 minutes of the same thing.
It looks like almost everyone got knocked out on screen, but I'm glad you made it through anyway, Barack. I can't wait to see what the next fight is like. Probably more of the same, I'm guessing.
Not like Barack has had any real difficult time with any fight. We're a few hours into the game and probably over halfway through, and there hasn't been anything that he's actually struggled with.
You are definitely right on that, but I think it's important we talk about what happened. For some reason, before Dr. Lugay died, he experimented on the King and Queen of Eblan, although there wasn't all that much foreshadowing to it. I think there may have been a couple lines of dialogue that alluded to it, but certainly not showing the full extent. I don't think it hits as hard because we never saw them before they just abruptly showed up and started fighting the group. There isn't really much they can do about what happened, and overall doesn't have much impact as it's not something anyone really talks about going forward, including Edge.
At this point, I'd be more surprised if there actually was some lasting consequences of character actions. I suppose there have been some like Rydia's mother and village getting killed and fighting Cagnazzo to free Baron from someone who was impersonating the king, but most of who we fought just don't do anything substantial.
Hey, you know what? I just thought of a comment question for this video. Out of all the boss fights that Barack has done so far, who is the most useless and forgettable? There's a lot of contenders like Bygan, the Dark Elf Ant Lion, Barnabas, Dr. Lugay, and the Calcabrina dolls.
That's actually a really good idea, Joe. I'm surprised you came up with one. There's also the Dark Dragon Magus sisters, the King and Queen of Eblan, debatably Octomammoth Mother Bomb, and probably even more yet to come.
Although I completely agree with your question for the episode, I do have to ask, did the characters just fall down due to a trap? If they really needed to get back up, couldn't they just have Rosa teleport them? Or Kane could just jump back up to where the crystal should have been at the very least. I swear this game won't let any of the good characters have any crystal for more than a couple minutes at a maximum. I get there's some suspension of disbelief for a fantasy game such as this, but this is really starting to push those limits.
I would normally agree with you on this, but in this case, there is actually a reason for them to continue the way they're going. It just isn't apparent quite yet, but it will be very useful.
Now, I have to agree with Ben on this one. I'm liking the gameplay from what I'm seeing, but this story isn't good at all. Things just happen out of nowhere, and people just appear and fight us and die on repeat until the game's over. I get this was released decades ago, so maybe I shouldn't expect better, but I still think it's fair to point them out when it happens.
Here's the reason we're supposed to be going forward. Despite falling down the trap, it's another airship we can use to not only get out of here, but also get around the underground better than we could before.
There's really just a free airship here. Where is this even being stored? I think it's in the tower still, but there's pure darkness around, and it's not like I could see an exit for where airships could just come and go. I mean, it's good that there's a way out, but even then, it's not like the characters knew they were going to be finding one here. This is still really dumb.
I don't think we should let Barack choose the next game if this is the kind he likes when it's not making sense at all.
Nobody asked you, Joe, besides your stories are all way less logical than this game, so that's really hypocritical coming from you.
Yeah, Joe, that's a little bit harsh. I mean, yeah, the game isn't making sense and the bosses are easy, probably due to increasing the experience manually, but that doesn't mean Barack shouldn't choose the next game we play inherently.
Thank you, Ben. Now we have a necklace, which is used to access something later, but for now we actually have to meet Sid, who is currently resting due to the previous events.
Hold up, Barack, you mean Sid is actually alive? He took an explosion to the face that destroyed the part where the Earth blocked the Red Wings from going to the surface and not only survived but is completely intact and also somehow landed near the castle. That dumb sacrifice out of nowhere happened and the game didn't even make it stick since the previous part. Joe, now I am on your side, Barack. You are not choosing the next game. This is so dumb and you need to pick something that doesn't have a terrible story like this does.
Are you really going against me now? Like this is somehow making less sense than sneaking around and fighting psychics, ninjas, and a twin who survives everything in the game? Or less sense than a Disney Square Enix crossover with Donald and Goofy? I can't believe you are turning on me like this just because a game made 30 years ago had some questionable design choices in the story and character development.
It's not like I can just get the scriptwriter on the phone so I can tell them how much the character motivations here suck if they exist at all, but since you wanted to play this game that makes less sense than Joe's stories, then I have to blame someone.
Oh, hey, that reminds me of when I
Joe, I'm in the middle of criticizing Barack for something that isn't his fault, and your sudden storytelling is really harshing my mojo up here. Anyway, I cannot imagine how this game is going to get worse with its character writing unless Yang also survived his explosion, got knocked out, and is just sleeping somewhere too completely intact.
I can't believe I have to be the mediator here, but Ben, even though I agree with what you're saying about the game story, Barack is at least playing well, so I don't think we should dismiss his choices of games just because of some lackluster writing.
Thank you for coming to my defense, Donald. Ben, I get it, okay, this is an old game and the story isn't the best. In fact, a lot of the times things do just kind of happen with no reason to them, but that's no reason why we can't still enjoy what is here. Since it is relevant to what we're doing, there's a few things we can do here that aren't necessarily required but are still good to do. We're in a town here that has some good equipment for this part of the game. There's another house on the bottom right of the underground, but we're not going in there for a few more parts. There's the Sylvan Cave, the Cave of Summons, and the Sealed Cave. The Sealed Cave is required, but we'll still explore the others as there's some good things to obtain in each place.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. What are we going to be doing for the next few minutes?
We'll do the Sylvan Cave as the way to get to the end is pretty short. We won't find a lot of useful items there, but I didn't want to skip it completely. The next part is where we'll go through the Cave of Summons, where Rydia spent her time after the Leviathan attack, then the Sealed Cave where the next crystal is being kept, which will take up most of the next video.
At least we know what to expect, that being 6 or 7 fights with characters newly introduced and defeated within a minute, probably.
Hey guys, would now be a good time for that story I was going to mention earlier?
I can't think of a good time for one of your stories, but you're just going to tell it anyway.
So this is the story about how I met my pet lizard. One time I was going to the Amazon and I saw this lady who looked pregnant and some other person who were searching for spiders. The guy who was there sounded really unnatural, as if he was saying one thing, then he was having his words changed and dubbed over. Anyway, he started killing everyone around, and the pregnant lady gave birth to some girl that ended up having powers of seeing through into the future. She met with some teenagers out of nowhere and decided to fight the guy who was killing everyone because he saw a future where they killed them. The 4 ladies went to a diner, and the person who saw the future was a paramedic. I don't think I mentioned that before, and she just crashed through the wall of the diner, probably killing some people in the process. They later went to some fireworks factory and fought Spider-Man, but without the webs. Some of the fireworks could break through walls, but some only inconvenienced the bad guy because I guess some of them weren't as lethal as the others. It turns out the guy's future was actually one where he caused his own death, kind of, and got hit by a Pepsi sign. One of the fireworks blinded the paramedic person because that was one of the less powerful fireworks at the end. Oh wait, I forgot about my lizard. While I was in the Amazon researching spiders with the mother right before she died, I just found the lizard on the ground and named him Alejandro.
Okay, Joe, I'm pretty sure that was just the plot of Madam Web, that really unsuccessful movie earlier this year, since none of that happened to you. Also, most of it wasn't even about you or the lizard, it was about other people entirely, and you just found the lizard in some Amazon? And I've never heard of a lizard named Alejandro.
That's just kind of par for the course. It was at least more interesting than just watching Barack fight a few trees and ghosts-like. Is that really what constitutes his enemies here now?
Let's just skip ahead. This isn't really interesting anymore. We know Barack is going to be just fine by the end of this fight.
Yeah, that's fine. There's not much else going on. We hope the viewers are fine with this shorter video since we just have a lot to do and want to split it up amongst multiple episodes without any of them being too lengthy with how repetitive some of these Final Fantasy IV ones in particular can get. Plus, I don't have to listen to Ben complain about how Yang is also alive too since the video's ending now.
Wait, what are you serious, Barack? I am definitely going to bring this up next time we play. I won't let my voice and complaints go unheard.
What do you know, he is back. We'll talk about it later, but for now, thank you to everyone for watching. We know there is more to come soon.
We'll be back with even more characters surviving explosions to the face. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more.
And as always, peace out, people.